Unlock the secrets of product management with our Safe Practice consultant and Agile coach, Harry Narang. Dive into opportunity identification, vision formulation, hypothesis development, and incremental value delivery in this elaborate video.
Dive right in. We have a number of topics. Now, as we go through our conversation, my encouragement is that you work through all of these different things with a fictional context in mind. You can also take into account an actual product context. We'll get into that, but get a piece of paper, a pen, or a notepad, whatever you like to work with, ready to go. So a number of things on our agenda. We'll start off with understanding what a solution is. This is mostly basics, addressing the basics of product management context, the first one. Right? Understanding solution and the context that your solution operates with. Once we do that, then we will get into some of the core elements of product management, understanding customer pain points, understanding goals that a business has, using research to build detailed hypotheses. This would be one of our primary focus areas over the course of this session. How do we use research, customer understanding, different techniques to build detailed hypotheses of different things that we want to potentially invest in? We'll talk about prioritization over here. And then, I put that in orange because I didn't want to go further down. So this is what's going to come after this, right? So using leading indicators to expedite learning. And finally, we will touch on measuring value creation. Sounds good? So a number of different topics to cover, starting with the first two to build some context on our specific solution. So starting with, what is a solution? Now, when we talk about the word solution, and you want to, as soon as start describing it, you want to start thinking about what your solution for the workshop is going to be. Because you're going to use that solution, and we'll hear from a few of us shortly, we're going to use that solution to simulate the rest of our conversation. When we talk about a solution, the first thing we need to understand is the what. I'll explain what that includes. The second thing we need to understand is where, and the third thing we need to understand is a why. What is the solution, where that solution exists, and why that solution exists? Understanding these three things give us the right foundational context to build our solution around, to further invest in that solution, enhance that solution so that the solution can deliver on business goals, priorities, and the overarching enterprise strategy. Now, when we talk about what associated with a solution, and if you notice, I've been using the word solution. You may think this word solution is a synonym with a product. That's fine. People use these terms almost interchangeably. When I use the word solution, here's what I mean. It can be it can be a suite of tech products. It can be one, or it can be multiple. It's generally multiple. Can be one, can be multiple, but it's generally multiple. Are you with me so far? Let's look at some examples. A solution for a specific organization, and I work with Target. Everybody heard of Target, the retail company, right? So a solution for Target was supply chain management solution. Now, what does that entail? This one solution is a collection. There is an inventory management system. There's a warehouse management system. There is a procurement portal, and so on, right? And there is dashboards that support supply chain management in Target. Generally, for a solution of this scale, which has multiple subcomponents associated with it, you would have a team of product managers that are leading the evolution of that solution. They might have one product management lead, that are leading the evolution of this specific solution so that it's aligned with business goals and priorities. That is the what associated. So you're going to start now putting yourself into the shoes of a PM, product manager, for that specific solution. So the next thing that you want to have clarity on as you work on that solution is, where does that solution exist? And what specifically we need to understand over here is the customer journey for that solution. We also use the word business process for that solution. I'll explain that. Business process for that specific solution. Let me explain. Start with the business process, right? Because sometimes it's customer journey, sometimes it's business process, sometimes these two mean the same thing depending on the context. We'll start with the claims management one. Everybody's you're familiar with what an insurance claim is, potentially dealt with one at some point in your life, right? Let's say I'm an insurance customer and I want to get an insurance claim processed. What would I do as a customer? I would potentially call the 1-800 number of my insurance company. Then I talk to a customer service rep. Then they route me to a claims rep. Claims rep says, fill this application out. I fill that application out. Then this application goes into a pool. Somebody looks at it. They either approve it or they deny it. If they approve it, it goes into a finance queue. Then somebody from finance looks at it. And eventually my claim is processed. You with me? What is that claims management solution supposed to do? It's supposed to help us enhance that claims business process. Perry's order management solution is supposed to help the business process where those orders are being managed. Banking payment solution. Again, we'll have to understand, what is that, Annette? What is that business process that this banking payment solution is going to be supporting? Because that's where we will have to identify pain points. That's where we'll have to look for opportunities. For example, Target might say, from the time we ask for quotations from our potential suppliers to the time we onboard a supplier, this thing takes 60 days. You with me? From the time we ask for quotes to the day we onboard a supplier takes 60 days. It could be available on target.com, but it takes us a long time to onboard that new product. As a result, people start going to apple.com and they start ordering from there. You with me? I'm just making things up. Are you getting the kind of pain points that we want to look out for in our different business processes, right? So, and they would go hand in hand with customer journeys, right? Depending on who your customer is, business process can be a synonym with customer journey. So what I'd love for you to do is to just identify a few steps in your overarching customer journey / business process that your specific solution is going to be used in. I'll give you an example on my screen, on the Miro board. Are you able to see my screen? Yeah, so here you will see a customer journey map for a potential customer who wants to get a mortgage and move into a new house. What does that entire customer journey or process look like? They decide to buy a home, they learn about the mortgage, they calculate their budget, they search for properties, they compare mortgages, they apply for a mortgage, and so on. And this one would be 100% kind of in scope for the kind of work that you used to do, Sogat, right? So this is our customer journey map for a mortgage customer. Now, similarly, you want to identify maybe just 5 steps, because you can detail them as much as you can. Just look for 5 key steps. So I'll give you a minute. Identify what is that customer journey where your product is getting used. You could be building an HR management portal, and your customer is an HR rep who needs to post new jobs and help a company hire employees, right? So what is the solution which you have already identified? Where does that solution get used? Who's using it and where is it getting used. Let's move on. So now we've understood our solution. The next thing that we'll understand is the context, the organizational context that this solution is operating in, which means what are the strategic priorities that are affecting this solution? How is this specific solution aligned with the overarching goals for your company? And this is where many different elements come into play. As a product manager, you want to understand what's important to your business. What direction is your business looking to expand in? Are they looking to cut costs? Are they looking to increase revenue? Are they looking to expand into new markets? Are they looking to increase compliance with a number of regulations? What is important to the CEO? What is important to the senior VP for the business that you are supporting? Often a tool that is used in our industry for articulating these strategic priorities is OKRs, objectives and key results, right? So we'll create one OKR for your specific solution context, right? So I'll create one, but in parallel, you want to be creating your, right? And maybe it would just, the one that I create, I'll keep it broad enough so that you can just translate it to yours. OKR stands for objectives and key results. So I'll start with one objective. An objective for your specific business context could be improve customer experience in the X offering. Fill the X for whatever you have, right? Improve customer experience in the order management offering. Improve customer experience in the video delivery offering. So you can fill the X. Next, we're going to identify the key results associated with it. And we'll just create two. One key result associated with this could be reduce cycle time to process a support ticket by 50%. Reduce cycle time to process a support ticket by 50%. Now, you want to translate it to whatever metric makes sense in your situation. Most likely, the key results that you identified on the previous page would be the dials that you're looking to move, or one of those key results, right? So here I have reduced cycle time to process support tickets by 50% in this business unit context. Another one over here could be improve system uptime to 99.99%. What I have is improve system uptime to 99.99%. Again, you'll create your own on what makes sense in this context. Now, this is just two. You can have more key results that associate with this specific overarching objective. Each O corresponds to multiple key results. Key results are supposed to be measurable and specific. All right, so we got these OKRs. Now, how do you create these OKRs is an interesting question, right? Is it a product manager sitting in their cubicle coming up with these goals? Generally not. This is created by the product management team in collaboration with your business. So this is a collaborative effort. You might have to connect with sales, marketing, overarching business, which is generally referred to whoever has a P&L responsibility. In many companies, the product management lead might have the P&L responsibility for their relevant product. Maybe they do not have that P&L responsibility, right? So we want to connect with the business and the overarching ecosystem where our solution exists. So if it is a supply chain management solution, you'll connect with head of supply chain management in Target, head of warehousing in Target. If it is an HR management solution, then you want to connect with your chief HR officer. HR reps, HR stakeholders, so that you're aligned with them on your overarching priorities. And we've just created one to keep it concise, but you can have multiple OKRs that are influencing investments in your specific solution. Yeah, so they don't have to be time bound. Sometimes they can be. You can have, for example, we want to reduce this by 50% by end of 2024. So you can have a time bound component to them. Sometimes they might apply for a period of 2 years, 3 years, sometimes even longer. Okay. So that is our number 2, understanding the organizational context that your solution operates with. Both of these things, they sound simple, but give me a thumbs up if you agree that most product owners, product managers do not have clarity on these 5 or 6 things that we spoke about. So if you can understand just what we identified in the last 30 minutes, you're going to be already ahead of the pack, because now you have the foundational understanding that's going to help drive the right decisions and behaviors. So next, understanding pain points is the next step. Now that you understand the journey, you understand your customer, who is actually using your solution, what is the overarching organizational context that we're looking to support, then we look for overarching pain points that we need to address, or I also sometimes call friction in our process. What is it that's, making a negative impact on those important metrics that we identified, right? We had from BN that idea that we want their customers to receive their products quickly, and it needs to be right, maybe all of the time or most of the time. Okay, what is it that is causing those errors to happen? You know what? Sometimes our things are placed in our different products that we have to ship are placed in the wrong location in our warehouses. That causes that error. Or sometimes we, have wrong translation. People don't really get the notification when an order has been changed by the customer and they keep shipping that previous order that we had before that. So what is it that's causing friction or pain or negatively affecting our overarching metrics that we have? Now, this again is a big topic, right? It's science, but it's also an art. Being able to interview customers. So what are different tools that you will potentially see being used over here? You're going to see, journey mapping is one that we have identified that I showed you. So understanding your journey, customer journey. So this again involves multiple iterations, interviewing customers. We use tools like empathy maps. So the goal here is to use research, data analysis, competitive analysis to understand where we have friction, negative impact, or pain points building in our process so that we can address the right things. I'll give you an example of something that we identified from a customer journey map a year or so ago. It was for a financial services company. And the idea that we identified from a pain point was what we called a pizza tracker earlier on. Anybody's seen a Domino's pizza tracker? When you place an order on Domino's, it shows you, right? So we're building the same thing, but for a mortgage customer, because through our customer journey maps, we identified that after a customer applies for a mortgage, for a few days, it's kind of like a black box, isn't it? You don't really hear anything. You don't know what's going on. So we're building the same thing as a pizza tracker for a mortgage customer that shows them where their application is in the process and so on, right? And it's a new investment that they're making on their CRM solution for that specific bank, right? So customer journey maps, looking at what your competition is doing. Sometimes it may not be an apparent pain points for your customer, but your competition is offering something and it's giving them a lot of traction and positive feedback, and you might have to start replicating those kind of things. All of these things would help you generate some ideas. Also, feedback from the customers, right? So feedback is, of course, important. Feedback from the customers, surveys, demo feedback, all those things would feed in. to identifying these things. Now, generally, most companies, through these things, customer feedback, market research, business requests, empathy mapping, journey mapping, all Gemba walks. The word Gemba is a Japanese term, which in English translates to where the action is. Where the action is. Here's an example of a company that engages extensively in Gemba for 1 day every 3 months. I believe all of us have heard of DoorDash. Now, this is what they do for 1 day every 3 months. They go out in the field and they actually put themselves in their customers' shoes. They make deliveries and they understand the pain points that the delivery people go through. They understand the pain points and interact with their end customers so that they can identify these things. And generally, the day after this, in DoorDash, they have what they call a hackathon, which means they break people into teams, ask them to come up with a new innovative idea that could help address some kind of pain point, some kind of friction in the process, some kind of some element that is negatively assessing our overarching customer experience and our business goals. Now, product managers, through their expertise, use some kind of a model. There's many models available. ICE, this is something I'll invite you to Google about. It stands for impact, confidence, effort. So this is a model for quick prioritization on a bunch of ideas. Because if you generate a lot of ideas, let's say you got 50 ideas that you could be working on in the DoorDash app, how do you prioritize what to go deeper into? So you need some kind of a tool that helps you pick the right things. A lot of product managers in companies like Intel, Apple that I've worked with, they use what we call an impact and effort matrix, very similar to the ICE model above. And what this shows is that if a certain idea is high impact, but also a lot of effort, it's going to cost us a lot of money, a lot of time to build it, it would show up over here. For example, we want to introduce AI-based automation in how we assign a delivery person to an order. Okay. Yeah, it would help us reduce our costs a lot. It would help us expedite our process, but it's maybe a lot of effort. Maybe there is other things which are high impact and low effort. It's a quick fix. It's a minor investment. Maybe we can use a plugin. Maybe we can buy something off the shelf and we can start to potentially work on those, right? And then there is things that are low impact and high effort, and those ones become easy ones to potentially ignore. So this becomes your area of focus. Things that are high impact but relatively low effort. And these things go into your product/solution funnel. These things would potentially become ideas that you would invest your teams and your value streams capacity in building. And what starts after this is once you have built a funnel of new ideas that are making somewhat sense in terms of effort and impact, these ideas are also aligned with your overarching OKRs. If it's not aligned, you may not choose to pursue it, right? There's always going to be more good ideas than capacity. You can only do so much in the next 3 months, isn't it? You can only do so much in the next 6 months, 9 months. And identifying what is it that we need to focus on is a part of our expertise as a PM. And that's what we're going to start looking at next, now that we have a funnel. With me on the funnel? So next, once we have identified pain points, started to build a bit of a funnel, that's when we start to look at deeper research on those ideas based on whatever order of priority we end up assigning them. Now, this research takes time for the ideas that you would develop. And for these ideas that we will develop or that we will go deeper into, that's when, Lisa, we will also perform some kind of an ROI. For example, this AI-based automation that we could include in our solution is going to cost us $2 million. What is it going to do from a business impact standpoint? Right? So I'll give you an example of what this deeper research to support or build a hypothesis would sound like. And some of you that have taken my classes before, you might have seen this short example. Have a look. This would be the result of the hypothesis that you would develop based on research for an AI-based chatbot, which is meant to answer maintenance-related questions or any kind of FAQs in any context. But more important than the work item name is the next two things. So I'll give you a second to skim through these and think about what a specific work item in your solution would look like. For example, you might say that in my video delivery solution, which is one that Howard identified, we want to be able to give our users an option to create a learning plan. Right, Howard? People can build their own learning plans on that video delivery solution. Or you might say, in my order management solution, I want to be able to have a dashboard view for my customers so that they can track all of their orders and we can see what orders are getting delayed so that they can act. Or you might say, an easy one that could apply to any kind of solution, some kind of notifications functionality. We want to send people notifications for their maybe upcoming payments, delayed something, right? Or something that's turning red. What are those notifications going to do and why delivering those notifications is important? Or if you are a product manager for Apple iPhone, you might say we want our customers to be able to send videos on iMessage. Maybe they currently do not have that option. You think it is a good potential functionality to add to our specific solution. So here you're identifying a work package. You know, many companies call these things epics. You may be calling it something else. You can call it epic. You can call it just a work item, which is fine. You can call it initiative. You can call it investment, and so on. So any of those names work fine. The goal is that you have identified something to work. So I'll give you 1 minute. AI-based chatbot, you might have a new portal, you might have some automation, you might have notifications, you might have a dashboard, something that you want to add to your solution. Why do we want to add this thing to our solution? Because we think it is going to help us move the needle in the right direction for our primary metrics. Remember metrics, right? So here the metric is call center volume. We think a lot of people are calling our call center in this specific company. And if we can build a chatbot, it would help us reduce calls coming in our call center. People can self-service their needs. As a result, we will save some money, right? Because we need to hire people to answer those calls otherwise. So let's put what we got in our chat, and then we will talk about the next thing. Now, this building of hypotheses, as you type it, is probably the most critical thing for a product manager to be able to identify the right thing to work on. In this case, it was AI-based chatbot, to build a hypothesis or hypothesis that justifies the investment in that specific work item. Because that work item in this AI-based chatbot is going to cost us some money, isn't it? It might take a team 6 months to build that chatbot. Okay, now what is the cost of that team for 6 months? Maybe it's $1 million, maybe it's $2 million, right? So that is where you might often have even business cases, depending on how big, depending on scale. So if that AI-based chatbot is really big and it's going to cost you a lot of money, a lot of time to build it, you might have to, in your company, build a business case, which means you'll have to prove that it is a good investment of our time. And you might say something like that this AI-based automation, Perry, in your specific company is going to cost you $1 million, and it is going to help us reduce our expenses by $2 million per year, right? And that's when it might get a green light. So in many companies, we also see some kind of an approval process for big investments. We're going to transition to the cloud, and it's going to help us increase our system uptime, okay? It might have to go through a CFO approval. So thumbs up if you've dealt with business cases for big investments in your product/solutions. Okay, some of us, good. So this is something that you might have to deal with. Most organizations have some kind of a portfolio management function that oversees investments happening in different products and solutions, and make sure that Savannah doesn't just start working on whatever he likes, right? We have to put some guardrails around our product managers, even though they're all smart people, but they can make biased decisions. Good. So we got deeper research. Next comes prioritization using weighted shortest job first. Majority organizations that I see around me use this model called weighted shortest job first. Thumbs up if you've heard of it. Shortest job first assesses what investment is going to give us a better bang for our buck. Let's take a metaphorical example. Our friend Kerry has a rental property that could rent for $200 a day, but it's currently not in a rentable condition. It requires some fixing, some renos to be rentable. Every day, Kerry delays fixing that property, she's going to lose what? $200 a day, right? That's the cost of delay, as we call it, COD. You want to write this down, cost of delay associated with that renovation effort. If you think about it, everything that you identified as ideas in the past, in the last page, AI-based automation, a notifications functionality, a dashboard, all of those things also have some cost of delay associated. Every day we delay delivering that specific functionality to our customers, to our business. It cannot start producing value, which it would once it has been delivered. Thumbs up if you're with me on cost of delay. What do we lose by not doing it, right? Once we have this new functionality delivered, it can start producing revenue, okay? So every day we delay delivering it, we're losing that extra revenue that we could have generated. So that's the first thing that we look for. Cost of delay. What do we lose by not doing something? Because Kerry does not have one rental property, she's got two. Second one rents for $500 a day. This one also needs renos and fixing to be rentable. Which one should Kerry fix first? Pretty easy, $500 a day, right? But let's make it a little complicated. This one is going to take Kerry only 2 days to fix. This one is going to take her 20 days to fix. Now, which one first? Maybe 2 days. Why? Because when we divide 200 by 2, Kerry can generate $100 of potential rent for every day of work that she puts in over there. Here she generates only $25 of potential rent for every day of work that she puts in. Which means Kerry would optimize economic value creation for herself if she starts with this one first. Now she's going to do both. She's not answering the question which one to do. She's answering the question which one to do first. Because at any given point, you can only do so much. With me? Now, what we just did over here is basically what weighted shortest job first is. So cost of delay divided by job size associated for that specific work item. Now, our life is not as simple as rental properties, isn't it? How do you come up with cost of delay associated with the specific functionality? You may be calling it feature or an epic or whatever that is, right? How do you figure that out? Because that has tangible value. It also has some intangible value. So what we often do is we break cost of delay into three parts. What are the three parts? User business value, time criticality, risk reduction, and opportunity enablement. And we give these things a score on 1 to 10. Or you can also use a Fibonacci series. Everybody knows what a Fibonacci series is? 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, right? So you can use 1 to 10, you can use a Fibonacci series to give them some relative scores, and then we can perform a total cost of delay score for a specific functionality, for a specific feature. I'll show you an example guidance that I've created for a certain client to do weighted shortest job first assessment. You can take a screenshot of it. If you've never heard of weighted shortest job first, I'll send you a video link that you can watch, and it would give you details on what it is. But what you'll see over here is that the three elements of cost of delay, user business value, time criticality, risk reduction, and opportunity enablement, we have given these people that are going to be performing these assessments, in this case, product managers, product owners, collaborating with architects and business, we've given them some guidance that how do you give something a score on these different elements. For example, if something is, in this case, if it was going to increase their revenue by $1.3 million per year, we give it a 13 on user business value. Right? Similarly, how do you give scores for time criticality associated with a work item? How do you give scores for risk reduction and opportunity enablement associated with a specific work item? And here at the bottom, I've got job size. And typically job size is tracked in story points. Thumbs up if you heard of story points. Basically a measure of effort, right? So if something is really big, it would potentially be a lot of story points, and therefore it may not be a good one to tackle first. These things are used as a way to prioritize / sequence things in your backlog. So I'll send you this link, and if you haven't heard of prioritization practices, this is a good one. You can watch this video. It's about 5 minutes, and that would give you an intro to it. But take this screenshot, because just that video alone would give you unanswered questions on how do you do these assessments. And generally you need some more massaging, some more guidance to make it objective, because otherwise all of these scores for a feature, for an epic, what is the user business value? How do you give something a 5 or an 8 or a 13? Tricky. You with me? How do you give something a time criticality score? So we need some guidance, because if you do not have guidance, what generally starts to happen is people who shout the loudest, people who have the fanciest job title, all those things start to skew all of your decisions. So one of those things that good product managers do is they make objective decisions. They translate subjectivity to objectivity using data, using evidence, using analysis, using market research, customer feedback, all those different things. Thumbs up if you're with me so far. Prioritizing things, simple terms, you can just for now think of it as what gives us a good bang for our buck. Bang is calculated in the form of cost of delay, and buck is calculated in the form of job size. How big is that effort? How long is it going to take for us to execute? So we got that. Next is for us, we got just one main thing left, and then we will wrap up. And this is a critical one. You want to pay attention to this. This is probably one of the most nuanced topics in product management. Very, very few product managers really understand and use it the way it's designed. For obvious reasons, it is tricky, it is subjective. Leading indicators. What is it? It It refers to the idea. It comes from economics, not from business. It's an economics-driven concept. It says that in business or just in any ecosystem, we can track certain things in the present, which would give us a hint about the future. You can track certain things in the present. They would give you a hint about the future. I'll give you an example from general economics. They say that when the inflation rate in a certain economy starts to rise, the next year, unemployment rate also rises. But it happens in the following year. You with me? Right? So what this means is that inflation rate becomes a leading indicator for unemployment rate. What that also means is that if the inflation rate in a certain region is starting to increase, and if the government wants to control unemployment rate, they have a little bit of lead time to move some dials so that they can stop this from happening. So this becomes our lagging indicator. Leading, lag. Now, what is interesting is that the same indicator can be leading or lagging if you change the context. For example, here we had unemployment rate, right? Did I say no? Inflation rate, right? What is the leading indicator for inflation rate? No. They say that if the crude oil price in a certain region or economy starts to increase, sometime after that, inflation rate increases. Thumbs up if this is making sense. That the same indicator can be leading and lagging if you change the context associated. Now, how does that translate into our product management work? There are certain things that we want to be able to track quickly, which would give us a hint about the future. Because the last thing you and I want is that we build something from start to the end and say, it did not work. Sorry, made a mistake. That's not acceptable in business. Would you agree? Because millions of dollars might go down the drain because of that mistake. And good product managers, and as I said, this is probably the most nuanced topic that we will cover today. Good product managers have the skill set and the understanding to decipher what are the leading indicators associated with their investment so that they can track those proactively and make what we call, you want to write this down, pivot versus persevere calls. Is it time to change direction? Do I continue investing in this AI-based chatbot or in this notifications feature or in this dashboard or in this automation area? Or do I need to change direction? Now, I'm going to give you an example of an actual leading indicator that we used in Intel. The solution in this case was an internal support solution. And I'm going to stick to that AI-based chatbot. Right? AI-based chatbot was hypothesized to help reduce support ticket volume. They said, we're going to build AI. Everybody knows what a chatbot is, where you can ask questions and not a human being, but some kind of algorithm responds to those questions. They're like, it is going to help us reduce support tickets because otherwise those people would have reached out to us via email or via call centers, and we would have to manually serve them, which of course costs a lot of money through HR investment associated. Question, is it guaranteed that this AI-based chatbot is going to help reduce support ticket volume? Not guaranteed. It's a what? It's a hypothesis. And maybe this hypothesis is backed with a lot of research. There's evidence that's supporting this hypothesis, but it is still a hypothesis. It's not true. It's not valid until it's proven. So what we did in this case, and you want to pay attention to this, we built a minimum viable product to test this hypothesis. The word you want to write, and you want to write this down in your notebook, that minimum viable products, it means different things to different people. So I'll explain what this actually means from a textbook standpoint. Minimum viable products are built to test our hypotheses. The word minimum viable product was coined for the most part by a guy named Eric Ries, who wrote a book called The Lean Startup. Anybody's read that book, Lean Startup? Thumbs up if you have. Lean Startup. Good book to read if you're a product manager or if you want to be one. And what the formal textbook definition, again, something you want to write down, in this case was minimum viable product is something that we build to prove or disprove our hypothesis. Or you can say test our hypothesis. That's the formal definition. Not the minimum that we can go to market with. Not the minimum that we would launch with, which is what many people think of minimum viable, right? So test our hypothesis. What's the hypothesis? That we will reduce support ticket. I'm going to give you a metaphorical example first, then I'll go back to this one. My friend Diane says, Harry, in my neighborhood, there is no Italian restaurants. Where do you live, Diane? Kentucky. There is no Italian restaurants. Harry, if we open an Italian restaurant in my neighborhood, oh, we'll make so much money. I've done the business case. Oh,
I'm thinking of West Ham.
Well, I've done the business case. It's looking really good. We're going to make our money back in just 8 months. Let's do it. Should we go ahead and open an Italian restaurant, spend maybe $2 million in opening one? It's a big risk, isn't it? So what do? Maybe we first start with identifying our hypothesis. That's the first step. What are our hypotheses associated with this? Number one, people in Diane's neighborhood want Italian food. That's the first one, isn't it? Is that guaranteed? No, it's a hypothesis. Number two, people in Diane's neighborhood are going to like our Italian food. Oh, that's even more trickier, isn't it? The next one, people in Diane's neighborhood want Italian food on a recurring enough basis to be able to sustain a restaurant. Number four, people in Diane's neighborhood are willing to spend fine dining money on Italian food. And that's a more, elaborate hypothesis. But it starts with some of those basic ones. Do people even want Italian food? Do they like our Italian food? And what do we need to do? We need to structure our minimum viable product to test those hypotheses, which means that we need to be able to answer those questions that I just described. So what could our minimum viable product be? It might just be a rented food truck. We spend $3,000 to rent a food truck, and we start, selling some Italian food for 4 hours every day for 30 days in a row. And we see people are interested in Italian food. Are they liking our Italian food? You with me? Based on what we discover and the learnings that we get, we might scale it up to a takeout restaurant. Then more hypotheses will come into play, and then we'll see how people are responding. And slowly we keep scaling up to a full-fledged fine dining restaurant. Thumbs up with me if this is making sense. Now, what I just described is the thought process that a rockstar product manager embraces of building and testing hypotheses. And this is where our PI cadence is going to come into play. Have you heard of PIs? Yeah, most of you have heard of SAFe, right? So in SAFe, we talk about something called a PI cadence, which is generally 10 weeks long. Why do we use that PI cadence? So that we can use that 10-week opportunity to build a hypothesis and test a hypothesis. Because 2 weeks, which is a sprint cycle, is generally not enough to build and test a hypothesis. Would you agree? 2 weeks is too short. But in 10 weeks of focused effort, we can, right? And in many of us that have taken my product management class before, you've heard us talk about this, how we build hypotheses for features, take them into a PI, and test those hypotheses by the end of that PI. So in this case, our minimum viable product, you want to pay attention to this, was not a chatbot. What was the minimum viable product in this case? It was just a chat icon and box shown to 1,000 customers that were going to eventually get the AI-based chat. Just the icon. You with me? That chatbot does not even exist. What are we looking for? We're looking to see how many people click on the icon to try and ask a question. Now, the next thing that we look for, once we have identified the MVP, is a target level. What is the number that we're looking for from those 1,000 people that would get that icon? We were looking for 500 people to click on that. If 500 people click on it, that was good enough evidence for us to understand that people are wanting to use that chat bot. Thumbs up if this is making sense. Right? Savannah, good? Rocio? Right? So we did not build the chatbot, which is what most people would think of a minimum viable product, right? We did not build it. Only the icon was built so that people have the option to click on it. Once they clicked on it, we had a message over there that, hey, we're still working on it. In the next few weeks, we will keep you updated on how this chatbot and chat functionality is going to evolve. So we had a message for those people, but all we were looking for is that how many people are trying to engage with that chatbot icon. Make sense? The next thing was to start adding some functionality, basic FAQ responses in that chat. Okay, now we see, are people using those basic responses? Is the call center volume, support ticket volume starting to nudge in the right direction? You with me? And this is where incremental development, which Agile is all about, is going to come into play. And we would keep pushing in that specific direction as long as our ROI, customer feedback, and our hypotheses justify. Thumbs up if that's making sense. So leading indicators to expedite learning are critical to make proactive what we call pivot versus persevere calls on our investments. And finally, the last bit associated with this is measuring value creation. Now that you have executed we have understood those leading indicators, then we need to track value creation. How do we track value creation? Using those metrics. Remember metrics that we identified on the first page itself, right? What, where, and why. The metrics that we identified now need to be tracked on a consistent cadence. What does that cadence look like? Depends on the organization. If your organization is working using a SAFe kind of model, then you're tracking that typically at least once per PI, which means once per PI, which is typically 10 weeks long, could be plus minus a little bit. You assess, hey, are we nudging the needle with regard to cycle time, error rate, revenue, customer satisfaction scores in the right direction as we are building and delivering new functionalities to our customers. So measuring value creation goes hand in hand with all of these things that we initially identified. If you do not have clarity on the customer journey, if you do not have clarity on your primary indicators, key metrics that you're looking to nudge, you'll not be able to measure value creation. You'll not be able to build the right hypotheses. Your research would be scattered in a number of different directions, and leading indicators would become very difficult to identify and assess.